on September 18th, 1:31 p.m. Mr. Attorney, we do have a quorum, correct? All right, let's start from the top of the agenda. Correct?
We have the roll call.
Commissioner Barfield,
Right here.
Commissioner McMillan,
Here.
Commissioner Merritt, Commissioner Daly, he's present. Commissioner Dozier,
Here.
Commissioner Nick Maddox,
Here.
Commissioner Nancy Miller. I think I got everybody. Thank you.
All right. Roll call. We'll move on now to agenda modifications. Are there any agenda modifications?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out under the consent agenda on the calendar revision, we're proposing to move our annual retreat that we normally do in October to November. We fall in after the election in case there's any changes between board members. We'll be talking about things like our long-range plan, and various plans updates, so we felt it would be good to go ahead and move that till after the elections.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Miller.
I saw that, and I agree with you. You should do that. My question, though, is that you're putting it on the Monday following Thanksgiving, which falls 3 days after the installation. And I don't think that at that point they're going to have decided who is going to even be on the CRTPA. So I was hoping Commissioner Richardson would be here to hear this. You can apprise him of the situation, and I just feel like you need to give it it looks like to me it would be better to have it after the first meeting that they actually have. Either that or get this topic on the agenda. You know, they'll actually, I don't know what they'll do this year. When I was installed, basically, we just switched places, and then they actually had a meeting. I don't know if we're going to have a meeting on the 19th or not. So, but after the first, the new commission meets the first time, it would be, I think, more productive if you had a chance to brief them on what is CRTPA and who are the people that are going to be representing the city on the CRTPA. So they'll even know who's supposed to come. I mean, they can all come, that'd be great, but anyway, the timing's a little
tight. That was my understanding, like they did the assignments on the 19th, is that not the case?
Well, I'm not sure what they're going to do on the 19th. I know that I am no longer going to be with you after the 19th. But I'll be there in the beginning of the meeting. They'll be sworn in. Then they'll take our seats. And whether they have a meeting after that or not, I don't know. When the last time we did an installation, we did it outside. It was separate from a meeting. In fact, I think it followed a meeting maybe. But bottom line is that I would suggest you get together with the manager, now that we have one, and find out what his plans are and the treasurer clerk's plans for that transition, and allow the new commissioners time to organize themselves around who's going to have the responsibility of CRTPA.
Right. That was a question I had posed, is when did the city have their organizational meeting? And I got back November 19th.
Right.
Maybe there
That's
was
correct. That's correct.
There was a
but I don't know if well, they'll be installed. That
right,
doesn't mean anything
their...
else will happen.
Okay.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chair, I got to beg Greg's forgiveness. We talked about this in briefing yesterday, and I was thinking about the reorg swearing-in ceremonies, and you have the right dates for that. But Commissioner Miller is correct. The county wouldn't formally appoint someone until I think our December 11th meeting. So we may need to talk to the manager administrator, as Commissioner Miller suggested, on when the appointments would take place. And forgive me, that was...
Well, that's okay.
I missed
Like
yesterday.
when we talked yesterday, I thought we had it covered on both, but that may not be the case. So I would suggest maybe for now we leave it for November, and then we may need to come back and maybe do one in December. I typically try to avoid December meetings, but in this case, depending on what happens, maybe we'll do it.
I think it would be fine if it were a meeting. The fact that it's a retreat is my issue.
You just check to make sure that you're on. Seeing no modifications, can I get approval of the agenda? Motion? Any objection? It has been approved. Citizen comment. Are there any citizen comment cards? Move now to the consent agenda. Is there a motion for consent? So moved. It's been moved by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. Any objection? So it is approved. Move now to roll call vote agenda items.
Mr. Burke is going to present the TIP amendments that require the roll call vote.
Good afternoon, members. We are proposing to amend our current fiscal year 2019 to 2023 TIP to reflect the addition of construction funding for 2 roadway safety, pedestrian safety lighting projects within Leon County.
Motion been made to approve by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Commissioner Barfield. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. I'm sorry, roll call.
Commissioner Barfield? Commissioner McMillan?
Yes.
Commissioner Merritt?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier?
Aye.
Commissioner Nick Maddox?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Dozier.
Unanimously passed.
Mr. Chair, I didn't want to interrupt that vote, but I did note in this item and one item in our blueprint agenda for Thursday, street lighting, and it brought to mind conversations from constituents in the past few years about dark skies. And I mentioned this to Greg yesterday, and it has not been a topic of conversation in your term here, I know, and I think the new LED downlights that are contemplated in the blueprint agenda for Capitol Circle work in that way, but I just wanted to know if we have the ability to have a conversation about the type of lights with FDOT going forward. This issue hasn't come up much for us, but as we branch on the arterials outside of the urban service area, I think it may come up more, and I'm just curious about getting ahead of that, not necessarily any change here, but just how we have that conversation in the future.
These projects were actually identified by central office due to safety data that indicated that these were the areas that needed to have retrofit lighting. Most of this is retrofit. I think in the future the design of this has already been completed, and we are looking to execute the JPA with the city of Tallahassee, who will install this lighting. So as I said, most of this is existing lighting where we're just going to be changing the Cobra heads on them, the type of light. But in the future, we can definitely look to that.
And thank you, Suzanne. I wasn't wanting to change anything with this particular project. I just wanted to put the issue on the table because it has come up in recent years from a number of constituents. So I think it just is something that should be on our radar.
Thank you. Next item.
Okay. As members will recall, at our June 18th board meeting, you all adopted a number of priority project lists, one of which was the TSM, or Transportation Systems Management list. Subsequent to that adoption, CRTPA staff has been made aware that there's potential operation and maintenance funding available for regional traffic management centers, as long as they are placed on project priority lists. So we are proposing at this meeting to update or revise that list by adding that project onto this list, and specifically ranking it number 1 on the TSM PPL.
Is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We move now to 7B.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be taking this one. If you recall earlier this year, back in February, we adopted our performance measures for our safety performance. As I said at that time, there would be 3 more measures that would be coming up later this year, bridge and pavement performance measures, as well as congestion mitigation and National Highway System performance. We took a little bit of a different turn on this one. If you recall, on the safety measures, we actually adopted something a little bit differently, or different than DOT had. We felt that what the department had established statewide really didn't fit the environment that we had here. But in this case, for actually all 3 of these, pavement management, bridge, and highway congestion, we're actually recommending that we adopt the recommended state measures, especially for bridge and pavement management. When you think about it, we really don't do a whole lot to impact those type of things with projects we select, so we're more than comfortable adopting what the state has there. When it comes to system performance, we'd actually originally wanted to be a bit more aggressive, but what we find is a lot of the data sets that we use are built at a national level, and the data is so inconsistent that we felt probably, again, this time, until we can develop more precise measures of measuring traffic flow and things like that, again, that we would stick to the conservative route and adopt what the department adopted. So with that, we had a pretty lengthy explanation in your packets. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So moved.
Motion to approve made by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Commissioner McMillan. Discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries without objection. We'll go with 7C.
Yes, sir. And in continuance performance measures requirements, we're also required to adopt a transit asset management plan. And here to present what's been developed by Star Metro is Walter Kirkland. Walter, I'll turn it over to you. And again, their report was included in your package.
Walter?
This is a first. I wasn't ready for this. This is a plan that we've put together that FTA has had all transit agencies across the country do, and this is simply a management plan to help show FTA that we're taking care of the equipment that we purchased with federal money, and that we're maintaining a state of good repair, and also that we're actively planning forward in the future for our projects to help improve transit around Tallahassee. And this plan has been put together to show them, you, and the rest of the public that Star Metro has got everything in place to take care of transit moving forward from this year.
Motion made by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, 7D.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this was actually an item that was requested by Commissioner Barfield related to issues that have been taking place in Jefferson County with, I guess, CSX trains?
CSX.
Continually blocking certain sections or certain roadways, within Jefferson. Barfield, do you want to?
Sure. Certainly at this point, if a development came before the county commission in Jefferson County, we would never approve anything unless it had an emergency exit. And unfortunately, this is not what has happened in the Lloyd Acres area. This Lloyd Acres affects about 200 homes. And what is happening is the CSX has their rail bed that goes right across the only in and out to Lloyd Acres. And recently, in the last 9 months, it has stopped about 4 times, and it sits there. Comes in about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it sits there. And it sits there, and it sits there. One day, it was there for about 11 hours. Those poor people could not get in and out. We couldn't get our emergency vehicles in and out, fire in and out, nothing. These are hardworking people, and they need to get to work. They need to get to their doctor's appointments, and they are fighting mad right now. They have come before our commission and asked if we could do anything about it. CSX is their own big monster and what they want to do, and I understand their safety, and they do have some particular safety rules. So just to let you know what happened on the 11-hour span, the train broke down. So not only did it block the Lloyd Acres, it blocked Murmuring Creek. So we're talking about an additional 50 homes back in there. Well, in the meantime, they had to, because it was broke down, they had to get the part, bring in the part. Then the train conductor had met his maximum hours he could work, so they had to bring in another conductor. So that conductor has to go up and down the train and check out the train. Now, this was a 300-car train. Well, people in Jefferson County, they want to do whatever they want to do, so they go to one of the cars that's linked, pull the pin, and try to uncouple the train. Ingenious people.
We don't have a train track.
I personally thought it was pretty ingenious, but the CSX would
How did they move the train?
not. They didn't. They couldn't even uncouple it.
They didn't get that far.
No.
There are a lot of four-wheel drives.
So I would imagine in Gaston County, do you have these problems too?
Oh, we have problems with trains stopping, but not for 11 hours.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So when there is an issue with somebody tampers with the train, so they have to bring in a safety crew, and they have to check every single coupling. That took about 6 hours. So when you pile all this on to that one day, these poor folks couldn't get in and out, and they were just fit to be tied. I bring this to the CRTPA and to our public in general because it is very difficult for us to offer services when we have one way in and one way out. And I'd like for us to pull our collective heads together and see what we possibly can do for these folks. So you say, well, why don't you just make a route around it? And certainly we can do that, but now we're talking about taking right-of-way and purchasing property. The areas that this is in is a very low-lying area, wet area. So it's going to be difficult. And when the trains nowadays are very, very long. Like that 300-car train, that's not unusual nowadays. So it takes a lot of momentum to get them going, a lot of momentum to stop, and it just sits there. So in the last 9 months, we've had 4 incidents where the trains have just sat there. So certainly have called CSX, and they have been good customer service, call me right back, try to figure it out. Oh, yeah, they've been excellent, and I appreciate that, but frankly, they just say there's nothing that we can do about it. So a couple of things that I thought about doing is having one of our public transportation vans there on one side of the train so they can go to work, have transportation go to work, but that means that they have to go all the way around. And those people, they were crawling underneath that train, they were crawling over the train. They have a mind of their own over there. So I'd like to see what we can do to help them out. What can we possibly do? I know I'm not the only community here in this region that's having that problem. And it's a very difficult problem. I know that on our end, because we have this problem, we would never approve a development to have only one in and out. But I can't correct what's been done years and years ago. So I put it on the table. DOT, know you're sympathetic to me. And like I said, they own that, and there's not much that we can do about it. So perhaps we can come together and think of a solution to help these folks out, because it is very inconvenient, and I just don't see where those trains are going to get any shorter than what they are now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Greg, we study stuff. I mean, is there anything we can do here? I mean, it sounds like that's like a real issue, one way in, one way out. I feel like even if it's some kind of study or something, what can we do? What are our options?
We really don't have any direct jurisdiction, and neither really does the park. I think Commissioner Barfield talked to yesterday. I think we will try to get some information about how often it happened or something.
Yes, and I did reach out to him after we had talked.
I think that's at least a place to start to see, and if it's an issue in Gaston County, see. But you know, you can always try to talk with CSX. But at the end of the day, as Commissioner Barfield said, they're the ultimate authority on that.
But is there anything we're doing in terms of like looking at other ways to just progress from those particular points, or different transportation patterns that could alleviate the stress or anything like that? I mean, is that in
yes, sir, that is definitely something we can take a look at. When the event occurred that Commissioner Barfield was talking about, she called me, and actually, as we were talking, I'm looking at Google Earth, and there's a few instances where you could possibly develop other pathways out, but as she said, you know, most of them are across private lands, so you're looking at right-of-way acquisition and building roads. There's a limited amount of money. Really, I think you'd be looking at probably SIGP monies for something like that. There may be some limited pots of federal money, but that is something we could at least take a look at. I'm not sure that we'll get very far with it, but we can always at least take a look at it.
Does the board have any heartburn about giving staff the authority to work with Jefferson County
And Gadsden
County about different pots of money and ways they could help deal with these types of issues, or what's the will of the board? Commissioner Dozier?
We had.
tracks crossover.
Yeah, but I mean, there's other ways to get in and out.
There is other ways to get in and out. But when you're talking about the train physically blocking intersections, yeah, I mean, it does happen.
Yeah. Blocking has, the problem I have with it, one way in, one way out, so just stop, you know?
They have a 300-car train, that's probably your, over Jefferson County stretching all the way to Leon.
Commissioner Dozier?
I was just going to add on there, and this is unusual. I think we did have one train or maybe two trains break down over the summer. There was an extended period, perhaps 8 hours or so, that it was blocked at railroad, but you're right, there are ways around that, so it's unique in Jefferson or other places. To me, this ties in with our economic development conversation. Appalachia Regional Planning Council has worked on the freight logistics zone. Of course, you could speak more to that. I know that wasn't a CSX line, but it was connecting with CSX. The end of that zone in Gaston County was connecting with the CSX line. That was part of the selling point there. I just wonder if there might be a way to piggyback the conversation, because we all want to know more about CSX. We heard they may be selling or other things. This is an economic impact to our community as well as a life safety impact. This can't be the only time CSX has had issues with neighborhoods that have one entry point. So, fair point. I mean, we all know, CSX runs their own show, and I know the city has had to deal with this with the bridge over CSX, or the railroad at Fair Offered and other places like that. So I just wonder if broadening the conversation might help us build a relationship and find different solutions than just looking at the one neighborhood, but looking at it as economic development, that we want the train system to be here and remain here, but we want to address some of these areas and get ahead of these problems in the future should train traffic pick up. Just a general thought.
And to piggyback on that, I don't think we're going to have more than 5, 6 areas where there's only one point of entry. I know I have 2.
I can only think of one.
Yeah, so it's not going to be that many here in our region that we serve, but when it does happen, I'm thinking there's an apartment complex over there in the Midway area. Is that the one you're thinking about?
Yes.
Yeah. And
then there's one in Gretna, too.
in Gretna? Yes. So it is an issue. And it's only going to take one emergency where we can't get in and out. We don't have a helicopter. We don't even have a boat.
I will pass this information on to the District 3 Rail Coordinator and ask him to also contact Greg to discuss any experiences that we may have or any information from the district perspective to offer to help this issue.
Thank you. That's going to be very, very expensive. I would love it, but the issue with one of my crossings is it's a private crossing, is what they call it. So while it does belong to CSX, the minute it hits that railroad track, it goes right into a private subdivision.
And that was one of the challenges, again, when she and I are on the phone, is there's a fair amount of distance to connect those up to another road. So,
yes.
It's definitely, it's something we can look at, but I'm just not sure where we can wind up with it. We're more than happy to take a look at it.
Do what your best effort.
Thank you.
You need more direction? You got it?
I am pleased, and I'm sure that Commissioner McMillan is grateful also. So thank you very much for allowing me to talk about that.
Thank you. FDOT report. Suzanne?
I just want to let you know, of course, I think you've seen that the US 27 resurfacing has started on North Monroe Street. We are beginning the coordination on South Monroe Street and also on North Monroe Street, north of I-10, with stakeholders in the area to look at any improvements that we can include in those resurfacing projects. So your complete streets plan that you have for South Monroe Street, we will look to see what pieces within the existing right-of-way we can incorporate into our project.
Thank you, ma'am. Executive Director report.
Just a couple of items. We had a little bit of an interesting summer. Around about July or mid-July, we found out that we were going to be about $2 million short for our funding this year due to a Suzanne and myself surprised, a little rarely known or rarely used DOT budget process to where the monies, if you recall, that we deobligated back in probably May or June, I believe, did not get budget authority. Basically, the money is there, and how it works in DOT world is if they have $1 million in a pot, and the legislature authorizes $500,000, they cannot spend more than that $500,000 until budget is freed up in other parts of the state. As my friend Mr. McKiska there put it, you have a checking account, but you have no checks. So, but luckily, through the efforts of central office and Suzanne as well, we did get it resolved. We hope to get our money authorized either yesterday or today. So, and what the impact on this was really the Southwest area plan. We had to, I won't say bring to a complete halt, but we did kind of slow down some of the work on that. We did a few public meetings, but we'll be ramping that back up in the next couple of days. The Midtown Phase 2, we're not able to start, but we will again. We have a scope ready for that. It's been approved. We'll move that forward as well. And but now everything's running smooth. And Chris, did you want to talk real quick about the regional TPO?
Yeah, Greg came to the first day of the meeting where we had Central Office DOT is undergoing a study right now to kind of look at how rural counties are being served or underserved in the region. So if you have a map, you look at all the counties that are served under the umbrella of a traditional MPO, you'll see that in the Panhandle, there's a big gap of rural counties that really don't have a regional voice. Franklin, Liberty, Calhoun, Gulf, Liberty. Gulf, yeah. So it's primarily in the Panhandle and then a little bit north. Gainesville has their own MPO, but the counties surrounding it are not part of it. It's only within the city. So central office looked at this issue, brought in a consultant to kind of look at it. They're in the very data collection stages of trying to explore this issue. And to their credit, DOT does have a process right now where they work individually with the counties on an annual basis. But U.S. DOT has basically prioritized or encouraged the use of rural transportation planning organizations, RTPOs. And really what it is it's an MPO for the rural areas, but it doesn't receive federal funding for projects. It's more of a planning organization to identify projects regionally and then prioritize them. So central office brought in 9 states from around the U.S. that stood up RTPOs. And the majority of them are housed with regional planning council type organizations. So they brought in some of these RPC folks, and they also brought in some of the state DOT folks. And for a day and a half, they basically gave presentations on how these RTPOs work, pros and cons. And on the second day, they kind of turned it around and looked at the regional planning council directors that were in the room that had been invited to this and asked for some feedback from us. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention because we walked out of there very encouraged that possibly a year or two down the road, DOT might consider funding a pilot project in the rural areas for RTPOs. And if that happens, obviously there would be collaboration with the CRT. Greg, if you had anything to add.
No, I thought it was very good presentation, a lot of good information.
We've been working on that a while.
We have, as Commissioner Dozier mentioned, the ARPC helped with the Freight Logistics Zone plan and study and designation, which consists of kind of the port coming back online in Gulf County, the defunct rail line that goes from Gulf to Gadsden County, goes through Franklin and Liberty. The idea would be as that port comes back online, that rail line is rebuilt and repaired. There's a trestle that currently we've heard going to receive funding to be refurbished. That would be an economic development impact on the entire region. Correct. So there is some momentum right now to have some type of rural transportation planning organization that's in place now to help with that process. But I don't see this happening for at least a year or two, if it does happen at all. But I did walk away going, wow, it was really good news for the central office saying, let's give this a shot.
Anything else? That's all I have. That's pretty awesome. I did want to make mention that Carl's here from the MPOAC. I don't know if the board would like a presentation from him. I asked him if he would be ready to give us an update today, but if not, I'd like to get him on the agenda maybe at the next meeting for him just to give an update of what's going on in MPOAC. We have the advantage of having him right here in the city of Tallahassee and Leon County. Very advantageous for us because we get firsthand from the man himself how things are going over there. I can tell you from our last meeting that we just approved our legislative priorities for the year, and I think it'd be good for this board to hear what those priorities are. So I don't know if you guys want to hear that now, or if we want to just wait and maybe put on the agenda for our next meeting. I'll tell you, we'll put it on presentations and information. We'll get a report from Carl at our next meeting, maybe after or before the executive director report. Commissioner Miller.
Well, I was just going to suggest this would be a wonderful opportunity for the new group, not necessarily, the first meeting, but at some point during next year, because I've always, how much value you can get from this training, and I would certainly want to encourage every one of them to go, and I think having a pep talk at the head of the whole shebang would be very exciting and interesting to them. So as far as your timing, I mean, we can come and hear about it next time, but please plan to come back you could plan to come back sometime let's see, don't you do the training in April, one in there in May? So if you could come maybe
So we have a
March or something. Yeah, it might be better.
We have a December one on the calendar, but again, I usually try to like to avoid December meetings.
I mean, I don't have the need to hear it as much as they do, basically.
Great point. So, Carl, if you just, you and Greg coordinate, get you on the agenda, definitely before the MPOAC Institute for those new members that may be joining. And with that, I'm sorry, Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad you're bringing it up. I would love to hear the legislative update and appreciate Carl being here. I just wondered if there might be an additional update after the election. I know that we're not really going to know what the ramifications are until we get into session and those types of things. So that could be a springtime or later update. But if we did move it to our November meeting or later, the new commissioners, as Commissioner Miller mentioned, could be there. And if there were any reflections on the results of the election and how that might impact things, it just gives us that opportunity.
Perfect. So
I hope you'll be back too.
We'll just say plan on coming before the Institute, but after re-election in board appointment.
Mr. Chair, I had
Yes,
one
ma'am.
other
Yes.
not related item. This was just a constituent question that came up. Is this the time for it?
Yes.
And I'm going to surprise my colleague here from Wakulla and say that it was actually a Wakulla County resident who mentioned this issue. No, she was asking a Leon County question, but because we're good partners and everything, she did come to me to ask the question. And we got some assistance from Jack looking at the widening of 319, Crawfordville Highway. I'm sure you've heard the same, Commissioner Merritt, that there are some concerns coming from Wakulla County residents that the work has already begun on the Wakulla County side, but on the Leon County side, they are anticipating a bottleneck. Okay, thank you, sir. So we may both be, or any of us may be getting some questions about that. So I would love to hear any update. The information we got back was that the widening on the Leon County side was not in the 5-year work plan, but at this point, is it just clearing on?
In the long term.
It's
in the regional mobility plan, but it
Yes.
is, at this point, it is not funded for any phases.
I personally think the phases would be perfect. Apart from the Leon County line, Wakulla County line, up to the start of the 4-lane on the south side, it's generally free flowing. There's no major intersection. It is at the 1 lane. Big bottlenecks are the stoplight. So the way it's phased, you probably already know this, either skip over Crawfordville, go to the high school, back into Crawfordville, then they're gonna do the park. So
And I
it is in
think-
the
And that was going, thank you, Commissioner Merritt, that was going to be my question as we look at the long-range plan in the next few years. It would be my hope that we could start to get, and I would need direction, we would need direction from you, Greg, what I consider fourth phase, which would be the Leon County portion, into the pipeline to follow phase 3.
It's I think probably 6th or 7th on our priority list. It'll be our next, after Woodville Highway and Orange Avenue, that would be our, what I would call our third highest major corridor priority. But I think too that there's been
Well, it was recently added.
to our priorities list, but we're getting a lot of questions about the phasing and how it's going to go. So I'm just kind of sitting there thinking we may just put together a simple map, maybe post it on our website that shows folks where those various pieces are, because it does get kind of confusing. And I've got to hazard a guess, probably on the Crawfordville side, that is going to be the most expensive in terms of right-of-way acquisition. So that's probably the other reason that it's left, because you got a lot more business impact in there. So that, yeah. Urban typically.
Right-of-way acquisition, Crawfordville South is already,
It's in, right.
construction. Right-of-way.
Yeah, like I said, I think it'd be good just to put it on one map to show folks what's going on.
Great,
Or they can just
that could
Or-
solve the problem right there, and I really appreciate that. I think projects like that are multi-phase will take us a long time, and definitely multi-county. It would be helpful. I had no doubt you were read into this and fielding a lot of questions, but for the Leon County side, we're going to get those questions as well, share workforce, everything else. So,
We had a Chamber
thank
of
you.
Commerce, somebody called me and said, we were told, or somebody told us, we're not even funding the park.
It will eventually get done, but it is correct. It currently it is
Last.
not funded.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Don't leave me in the government.
Exactly. Mr. Dozier?
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Davies?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, let me apologize for my tardiness. I have an oh, that is wonderful. I had an experience which is the first I've ever had. I had an episode of gout in my right big toe. So right now I am very slow and I have never had it before. I tell you what, I don't even wish it on a tree. Talk more of another human being. This sucker hurts. And so that is why I was kind of slow.
Cane looks good on you.
I know. I know what you mean, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Okay, and I will also thank CRTPA for the good work that they have started to do. I see that they are doing in Jackson County. I'm glad to see that the Out of Progress Bridge has actually started construction, and we have also gotten a timeline for Swamp Creek Bridge and the development of the southern part of the truck route from 12 down to Thomas Parkway is about to get started. So I thank the CRTPA for all of that work that they have done. And I have another issue that some citizens in Havana have brought to my attention. This has to do with the Havana CDC and DEO desire to redesign Highway 27, especially at the downtown area, where 27 actually cuts through Havana downtown, and it's almost impossible because of the heavy traffic and the trucks for people to be able to cross from one side to the other, which is the main business area, and there are some businesses on the other side where the fire station and the police station. So the businesses there are actually crippled right now, if not almost dead, because people are not able to cross, so they don't even cross the other way. So they are requesting a consideration of a crosswalk, maybe something like the one we have in Gaines Street, that will increase the safety of the citizens crossing from one side of the downtown to the other side, with just flashing lights, and so people know that these citizens are crossing. So these 18-wheelers and folks, because we really have two traffic lights there, and those two traffic lights are synchronized that they are green at the same time. So when they come, they are falling behind. So if we can include that consideration in the CRTPA project to at least help Havana address that problem, that would be very, very appreciative to the citizens of Havana and citizens of Gaston County as a whole. So right now, Mr. Chair, that would be all of my comments.
Thank you, sir.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to the city of Tallahassee on their appointment of new city manager, Reese Gobe. I think that is excellent, and if we can do anything in Jefferson County to help out, we extend our welcome, as I'm sure that everybody else does. So that was good news. Wanted to thank DOT for the 3 bridges that are being done in Jefferson County. Oh, Lord, our citizens are very, very happy. Yeah, and another one on the way, buddy.
You had to say that out loud. Had to say that out loud.
Listen, ours needed them. Ours needed them really, really bad. It's been a long time coming. We are going to have a community safety traffic meeting in the next couple of days, and what I am going to talk about is a caution light at the Waukena Highway and County Road 259. That's in Waukena, Ms. Lex, and we'll give you a formal letter from the county on that after our CTST vets that. Also was requested a hawk at the courthouse, and that did not go through our CTST, so we're going to be taking a look at that and seeing what the city of Monticello wants to do with that. And just a note, the Capital to the Sea Trail looks amazing. I got an opportunity to ride it on my bicycle the other day, and that is something that we should really, really be proud of. Really proud. It is beautiful. It flows beautifully. It's got some shade to it. So good job, everyone.
Through Tennessee to Surf Road.
All the way to Surf Road.
Oclotney Bay.
So it looks real, real good, and just good job. I've got one you can ride.
Anything else?
And actually, Mr. Chairman, I completely forgot. I'm glad Commissioner Barfield mentioned that. We will be doing a ribbon cutting grand opening on the coastal trail October 31st. So you all should be getting.
When is it?
October 31st. So there'll be a best costume contest. Best costume contest. But you should all be getting information on that here in the next couple of 3 weeks.
Getting late. I can almost guess who Commissioner Dozier is going to come as. We were hoping to see Star Wars come out. I can't. She has a picture in her office. All of us dressed up in Star Wars things. And you never guess who you were. But I was actually Darth Vader.
It's probably appropriate.
It's because I'm black. Any more discussion? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We adjourn.
Hey, we know that was a 45-minute